Okay. I'd like to call the Township Committee meeting to order this evening. Anne, would you lead us in a flag salute, please?
Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by emailing a copy of the notice along with the agenda of this meeting to the press of Atlantic City, Atlantic County Record, Record Journal, and current newspapers stating this meeting would take place at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, July 7th, 2014, in the municipal building, Mays Landing, New Jersey. Mrs. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mayor Silva?
Here. Thank you. I'd like to ask everyone to take a moment of silence for a private reflection, and during that time, would you please keep in your thoughts and prayers Joe Nichols. Many of you may have known Joe, and he's in Tampa now. He's in hospice. He's come through quite a medical ordeal, and with hospice here and in his home and in his life, I think his days are probably numbered, but many of us have had many challenging times with Joe as not only a friend and a mentor and a fellow committee person. And he left, I feel, and he isn't gone yet, but he has left an indelible mark on many of us, and for that I wish many of you would just keep him in your thoughts and prayers. At this time, I'd like to ask Assemblyman Chris Brown to take the microphone, and Chris, would you fill us in, please, on...
What's happening?
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank committee. I know you have busy schedules, and you allowing me to come here and update you on what we're working on, I think, is important, and I appreciate all of you giving me that opportunity to do that. A little while ago, you had reached out to me with respect to Route 40, Route 50, and Route 322. And some of your concerns were you wanted to make sure that the state was working with you in these projects so that you're not in an antagonistic position. And so upon that request, I reached out to John Case, who's the acting director of the DOT. He's very cordial. He was very receptive, and he guaranteed me and promised me that he would be reaching out to your committee to set up a meeting with all of you and the DOT to occur before the end of July. In the note I had initially received, I know that Mayor Silva wrote, not the silver hair, but Mayor Silva, he wrote specifically on behalf of the township to the state, and in addition, I know others, including Ms. Gatto, reached out to me directly. And so it was in response to that I'm here tonight and to tell you that a meeting should be forthcoming. The other thing I want to point out for everybody is I know that the towing and the impounded vehicles have been an issue. I have reintroduced the bill to allow you to, after the time period lapses, to sell any vehicle for any motor vehicle violation. I know that my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate, Senator Whalen, is also working towards making these ends for you as well, and I just want to give you an update on that as well. A lot of times in Trenton, things that you think should be easy and are no-brainers become major ordeals, and so we are going to keep fighting.
That's not just in Trenton, Chris.
Yeah, any government, I guess. And so we're going to keep fighting for it, keep pushing you forward.
Well, you know what some of the issue is, Chris, that many of the residents have brought to many of the committee's attention many times over the years. And some of the issues seem to be repetitive because, and no disrespect to anybody, but it doesn't seem to be a priority of anyone in Trenton to address the issue. And if they do, we generally don't see anything accomplished. as we're all being flooded with more and more traffic through our municipality and through our surrounding municipalities, because we are basically the crossroads of the county here, we're getting the calls all the time. So I would try to impress upon you that when we do have this meeting it's not a question of giving us lip service, it's a question of trying to put down some sort of an agenda where we can count on some results happening. And some of the fixes could be simple, and others not. I mean, probably one of the most annoying things is when you write someone like that, you don't get an answer. And that's difficult. Not you, I'm saying,
No,
others.
I appreciate everything you're saying, and part of my responsibility is to facilitate that, to cut through the red tape and to get you the meeting that you've been writing for. My experience has been that if they can do it, they will. And if they can't, they will give you an explanation as to why. I could easily hide under a rock
Sure.
and not do anything. I am not only here, but I'm in Egg Harbor Township. We had some success in Egg Harbor City, and we're still working through issues in Egg Harbor Township. But that doesn't mean just because I might not be successful that I shouldn't keep trying to do it for you and keep trying to facilitate a proper outcome. And I will continue to keep trying to do it. That's my responsibility.
We thank you for that.
I
Oh,
have a question.
Sure.
Chris, when I saw your letter, I called and spoke to Tom.
Yes.
Did he share with you the email I forwarded to him? I had 3 items on my list when I made a phone call to DOT at least a month ago. And the man I spoke to, and I saw the note today when I was moving papers around, I just don't remember the gentleman's name. I wrote him an email of what the issue was, specifically the one I'm referring to right now is Route 40 and New York Avenue. The other 2 topics, one had to do with traffic signs, and I don't remember the third. It's not important. These things triggered the phone call, and that gentleman had me send him, he gave me an email address for him. I sent him an email of what the issue was. I was then contacted by probably an engineer named Patel, who asked me to give him the specific issue with Route 40 and Route 40 and New York Avenue and 322 at Canals Liquor Store. And it's the traffic trying to come out of all those housing developments, they have to come to those 2 choke points. And with like a 20-second switch on the light, you can't make your left-hand turns, and people are getting bottlenecked at rush hour times, leaving in the morning for work is an example. So Mr. Patel and I collected the information he wanted, and I forwarded that up to him. So there's already, one hand was already working on something, and my point of going to your office with it then, when I saw your letter, was so that it could get, if there's something already underway, let's tie it together so it's all one project. Project meaning looking at it.
Well, that makes total sense.
Thank you.
And, I apologize because Tom did tell me that he received an email from you with some specifics. Part of what my hope was that when the meeting is held, those specifics will be part of the meeting. What I can do, if you would like me to do this, is you get a list. So now we're going to have a meeting.
It's in the letter that I sent. It talks about specifics at New York Avenue, it talks about specifics at McKee.
And that
Okay.
covers everything.
Yes,
that
well, at least
everybody-
those 2 issues, okay?
My email was the email that Mr. Patel and I had been exchanging, was forwarded into your office. So it's DOT information.
Here's something that I would suggest, and it's up to all you if you would like me to do it. If you get me a total list, what's in the letter, and anything else, I would suggest that you want to prioritize. I would suggest that, sometimes if you try to do too many things, often we find we get nothing done. So working
Exactly.
together, if you have ones in particular, I would be happy to get back in touch with John Case, and in talking with him, forward another letter saying, I'm glad you're setting up the meeting. Here is the list of items, which makes total sense because you want to know what you're going to talk about before they get here.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I think we've talked about this before, but I'd kind of like to suggest that the information that gets sent out goes through our administrator. I know when I ask to send information to Assemblyman Brown's office, I often ask to go through the administrator's office so that any information that we have in-house is all going and not just what I know or somebody else knows. So I think we should work through our administrator. I think we talked about Committeeman Gouchard also being involved as a member of the SJTA Citizens Advisory Council, and kind of just getting our list of things together. I gave my list of things together for Mike for when that meeting is set up, so that he knows what my items are. So, again, I just recommend we work through the administrator.
Accepted, I agree.
John Case's office at all?
I definitely echo that. I think everything should go through the administrator and not go out on our own and confuse everybody. It has to have a sense of order.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I certainly appreciate what you're doing and the opportunity to have this meeting, and I agree with your suggestion that we ought to prioritize because there are a number of items, and obviously we can't tackle too much at once. I do just want to also mention that the Citizens Advisory Council, or through that committee, there's also been a complaint made about, well, not a complaint, but the issue of New York Avenue and 40 has been brought up. So they've heard about this, I think, a number of times. So we look forward to the meeting.
Nobody is more hopeful than me that this meeting is fruitful, believe me, because I know when it's over, if it's
Chris,
not.
we're getting flagged that you can't be heard on the microphone.
Stay
so-
to the mic.
Sorry, how about that? Okay. Nobody wants this to be more fruitful than I do. And so, believe me, I understand if it doesn't go well, I'll have a lot more work cut out for me. In EHT, as an example, some of the conversations and the meetings didn't go well, and we're still fighting through that as I speak to you now. But here's my ultimate point. I am here for you, so use me. I'm here for you. That's my function, is to help you, so use me. And Mike, if you get to a point where you have a list of things and you've coordinated with everybody and you say, you know what, I think, Chris, you could be helpful if you do this or that, you have an open line to me anytime,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
I did speak to someone in his office today,
Oh, good.
sent them some information, so, but I'll get you a total, I think really an agenda would be helpful, something.
I couldn't agree
for the
more
meeting,
with a
so
priority
that's what I
list,
talked to
and
Amy
so
about.
that when they send people, and one of the things I can stress with Case is just what the mayor said. You don't want somebody coming down here who's a dog catcher.
Right.
Who starts smiling at you, nodding his head, and then goes back and nothing happens. You want action, and you want legitimate
correct.
results. So I get it, and hopefully working with Mike and all of you, we'll be able to do that.
Well, we thank you for taking
Thank
time
you.
to update us, and we wish you well in our behalf.
Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Before I go on, Mr. Solicitor, did you have something that you wanted to,
My law firm has dedicated itself to veterans.
Go to the mic, Bob. Lisa's arms are going crazy tonight.
My law firm has dedicated itself to veterans issues and has provided 10 of these in the past in the pins, and I'm providing 5 more tonight. I agreed to do it anyway, but what makes it special is my friend Joe Nichols. And what I would like to do is honor him while he is alive. And remember that he was one of us. And Chris, if you would get one into this.
let Charlie get a
It is
picture?
apropos that we honor and remember Joe Nichols, our brother, while he's still among us.
Bob,
Would you
sidestep.
face, Charlie?
When one of our own does what Chris did and what Joe did, and they join, there's not enough honor that we can give them. And it is with great pride that me and my partners and my associates do this for my brother Joe.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, there's no adjournment to executive session. Thank you. Nor any confirmation of executive session. Item number 3, addition or deletion of late items for consideration tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, early public comment on agenda items not listed for public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kurtz on item 6B.
6B?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is John
a
Kurtz.
public
I'm
hearing.
president of the Mays Landing Merchants Association, and I have a business here in town. I just wanted to start off on item 6B by just mentioning that I'm in full support of the sale of the easement to the MUA, but the opportunity to speak on that item, the fact that the MUA is on the agenda tonight, I just wanted to let the committee know that the word on the street, and also mentioned at Hometown Celebration, where a couple members or guests at Hometown were approached by someone indicating that the MUA was being abolished or disassembled, and I thought that that rumor certainly can't get out there, and it should be something that might need to be addressed. I just wanted to mention that. That's
John,
all.
I think that that's probably appropriate. You know, several of us up here have sat on the MUA. I sat there for 7 years as treasurer, and I made the statement here when I first got on committee 7 years ago that as long as I sat on committee, I would never vote to abolish the MUA. And I think we proved that the MUA is a very viable authority, especially with the shared service. Look what happened, what was it, Michael, a year ago or two? When we had the executive director at your work
3
as
years
our
ago, yeah.
public works director and share that service, and, you know, such a valuable asset. So I don't know where it's coming from and how it's getting out there, but I think it's not a true statement, at least from where I sit, and I'm sure other members of committee may or may feel about the same.
It's good to
Can
hear.
I-
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? I too, I don't know where this is coming from. I've heard that also, and I don't know what the basis for it is, because I don't know of any basis within this committee for that suggestion. And as indicated in the statements I've made several years ago when this topic came up, I am opposed to that, and I certainly wouldn't vote in favor of it.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, is that it?
That's on
Mike?
there.
Okay, item number 5. Pardon? Pardon?
Did you sign it?
Before you close public portion,
I generally don't, but go ahead.
in relation to agenda item number 4A, 5A.
Would you come to,
Harry Rogers, 1069 Morningside Drive. Agenda item 5A, resolution that members have read, the 2013 audit, talking about the findings and question costs. When this comes up as part of your discussion, would you please be a little bit more elaborative as to what the findings were?
and if there are any, yeah, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate that, thank you. Can I call, we'll go to that right now, 5A. Would you come up, please? Sir, our auditor. Have a seat. That's not a hot seat either.
Okay,
Would you just introduce yourself to everyone, please?
yes. My name is Carol McAllister with Bowman and Company. I just have a short presentation on the audit report itself. Just to give you an idea of what we do when we come out to do the audit, our audit fieldwork consists of several phases, which include planning. We evaluate the internal control systems, consider fraud, we assess risks, and then we perform tests and examination of account balances, and finally, the reporting itself. During the planning phase, we met with the administration, we met with department heads. This was our first year performing the audit for the township. And so what we did was we discussed our approach to the audit, and we tried to gain an understanding of the systems that are in place here at the township, what your policies and procedures are, what the various functions of the different offices were. So during that, we evaluated the internal controls, and also as part of that, we looked at the computer systems, because that's a big part of the audit itself and the processing of the financial transactions. And our audit procedures consist of looking at various offices of the audit, and the main audit procedures that we performed were in the areas of taxes and cash receipts, purchasing and expenditures, and the payroll systems. And we also sampled the activity in the various other offices in the township building, the court, the police department, and such. So you've received a bound copy of the audit report, and we've also submitted a PDF copy which can be posted on the township's website and distributed as needed. We've filed the audit report with the Division of Local Government Services as required, and a copy has been submitted to the Office of the State Comptroller as required. So all of the filings for the audit report have been completed. The report itself consists of a couple different sections. It contains exhibits, schedules, and notes that are all prepared by the Finance Office. All this information comes directly off of your Edmunds finance system. And the CFO, again, provided us with closed-out, balanced general ledgers, which is a large part of the year-end processes. We had minimal journal entries that were needed to be made to the general ledgers, and what that indicates is that the financial processes are being maintained as required. There's not much extra changes that need to be made after year end. So if you, as you are provided during the year with financial reports, that's the information that's accumulated and included in the audit report itself. Within this 100-plus page audit report, the 3 auditor reports are what are Bowman and Company's. All the rest of the information is, like I said, prepared by the township and is the township's financial information. Page 2 is a report on the financial statements itself. This audit report describes the financial statements that are reported on, management's responsibilities, the auditor's responsibilities, and the basis of our opinion. So our opinion for 2013 is an unmodified or a clean opinion, which indicates, it means that the audit is prepared in accordance with the regulations provided by the state of New Jersey. Now, you will notice that it says that there is an adverse opinion in accordance with GAAP, and that's because New Jersey municipalities are not required to report in accordance with GAAP, but the audit opinion needs to be presented. We need to state that you're not in accordance with GAAP, but you are in accordance with the New Jersey regulatory basis of accounting. Page 5 is our report on internal control and compliance over financial reporting. And this report indicates that we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control or compliance that we consider to be material weaknesses, and as such, there were no findings noted in the audit report for the year. So as someone indicated, the section of the audit report that the state requires the resolution to be passed on indicates that you've reviewed that section of the audit. There are no findings included in that section of the audit report for 2013, and there are no prior year audit findings. In that respect, there's no corrective action plan that's required to be taken by the committee. And the third report is, because it's on page 82, the township was required to undergo a single audit for federal funding as a result of expending federal funds greater than $500,000 during 2013. And again, that includes an unmodified or a clean opinion, and there are no findings in regards to the federal programs. On page 88, it indicates that the federal program tested was the FEMA grant for disaster grants recovery. That was the only program that was required to be tested within the single audit. And again, the report itself contains all the funds and accounts that are required to be maintained as required by the Division of Local Government Services. Number-wise, page 9 and 10 is exhibit statement of operations for the township. It shows that the township had a net excess in operations for the year of approximately $2.4 million. And when that's added to the prior year fund balance, the December 31, 2013 fund balance is approximately $3.8 million. Some of the items that contributed to that, there were some miscellaneous revenue not anticipated during the year. There was also, in regards to the prior year budget that was unexpended, those amounts lapse back into your fund balance. That was about over $1 million from your 2012 budget that those funds were not spent during 2012 or 2013.
Carol, would that be like,
I hear you over here.
you hear me over there?
I do.
Wow. I wasn't throwing my voice. I was tossing a question.
Yes.
Would that be like purchase orders that were encumbered in 2012 but were not executed and spent, and therefore the money would have been released?
That could be one example.
Okay.
Yes. So, basically, those are I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the audit. There were some items to highlight, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to the report itself.
I think it's significant to note that this is the fourth year that we've had a good audit, a perfect audit. And I think it's the first year we have a new auditor also. So given the fact that there's been a change in the auditor, and they still find everything perking the way it's supposed to. Carol, let me ask you a question. I mean, when you reviewed the capital debt in relationship to your understanding, I don't know how many other municipalities you do, but we have significant low debt, don't we?
Yes, you do. Yeah, you're allowed up to, the division allows 3.5% of your net valuation taxable, and that would be, you could have $84 million in debt, and the township only has about 13.6 million, so yes, your
Yeah, and I
debt
think-
is very low.
I think it was interesting that Rodney and I were at a conference, several weeks ago, Rodney? When we learned that our bond rating was a AA3, which I think in a lot of respects is significant at this time for this municipality, given the circumstances that we're dealing with. So, any other members of the committee have any questions?
I have 2 points. Carol, I raised the issue in 2012, 2 issues, both raised back then. One had to do with the security of the amount of cash that goes through this building. You made a comment about the court, and that's funny because I was thinking about that today. Do you audit the court, or is that under the administrative office of the courts or something, AOC with, you're still involved with the court?
Yes, we do an audit of the court and prepare a separate court report that goes to AOC.
Okay, because I don't get any financial reports on them, so I don't, other than seeing maybe the revenue line going up, I'm not aware of, and it just crossed my mind today, so it's a coincidence. That office is pretty well secured with locked doors and everything else. You commented in one of the documents about keeping doors should be locked at all times so the offices are secure. I raised that issue in 2012. Because of there's like $1.3 million in cash that goes through the tax collector's office. And that's an office that I want to know that what is being suggested is going to be executed, and I'm not finding that to be true. What do you recommend for that?
Hold on, before
This
you
is
answer
not
that,
part of
please.
this
Go ahead,
audit,
Mr.
is it?
Mr. Jacobs.
I would suggest that any security things be discussed somewhere else. I don't think we ought to promote how much money we take through and,
Where it is.
Public report.
okay.
That's
Saying
not a
where
good
it is,
thing
where the
to
money
do.
is.
And whether it's secure or not, I just don't,
Charlie, strike that from your article tonight, please.
You know what? I agree with Michael. While it is a public report, it deals with the security of the people in this building. And I have seen the comments, at least in that respect, in the audit. They are what they are. And I do believe it shouldn't be discussed here.
Do you have a different form then?
Yeah, I think that if there's a concern, it should be brought to the attention of the administrator. I'm not just talking about the amount, I'm talking about people safety.
I don't disagree. That's why I brought it up in 2012. It's nothing new for me to bring it up.
I have a question about bond ratings. Mayor mentioned that we had a, what is it, AAA?
AA,
AA. And I noticed that was the highest for any municipality. There were a few municipalities, but that was the highest rating for the county. I was just curious, do other townships and other counties have higher ratings, or is that generally the highest?
I'm not sure about the local area offhand. I know that is a very good rating for the township. And I think during the coming months, are we planning to do another rating? So it hasn't been rated, I think, since 2009? Yeah, 2009. So that rating's from back from 2009.
That's when
But
they
it
issued
isn't-
the debt.
That's when you issue the debt.
Yes.
And that's when a rating is normally done, yeah.
And what was this one again? I want to write it down. A,
Double A.
I don't have it.
double A3. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you, and I agree, look, if you have issues regarding that, Aileen, just bring them up to the appropriate people.
Okay, just send us an email or something. One thing you mentioned, that you don't get any reports on the municipal court, that you get the same report as every other department. All their salaries, all their income, all their expenses are in the report we put out twice a month. What don't you get from the court?
I only see a revenue report.
No, if you go through your appropriations, just like every other department, their salaries are there, their O&E's there. Just like every other department. I just want to make sure you know you do get it all.
You're talking about that?
Well, it'd be in the back of that.
It's the Edmunds printout at the
Yeah,
back.
municipal court's in there.
I was thinking on the revenue side, that's all.
Oh, you mean the breakdown of the fines?
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? Entertain resolution?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution certifying all members have read at a minimum the sections of the 2013 audit as discussed here tonight.
I'll second that.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion? Mrs. Anderson, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. And thank you, Carol, we appreciate your
Very
time.
much, everyone.
Carol.
Appreciate it.
Carol.
And thank you to the administration and to the finance office for all their help. Everyone was very accommodating to us, and all the departments that we talked to were helpful and provided us with information right away. So
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol.
Next item on the agenda is B, resolution to amend section of the Township Policy and Procedures Manual, Section H, injury leave.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. It just came to my attention, a recent injury on a part-time employee, that our policy didn't distinguish between benefits for full-time and part-time, and I think it should. We make up the full salary for full-time employees for a year. I don't think that's something we should provide for part-timers going forward, so I'm suggesting that we amend our policy to that effect.
Committee
Do
comments?
do we need to put more on the draft resolution? Because I did email Phil asking for some explanation. His response was really brief. On Section 1, amend Section H, injury leave. Could we look at the typing there, and is there supposed to be a dash, a slash, a word deleted, a word added?
The word, yeah, you're correct, the word add should be deleted. Basically, what we're changing.
By changing, so we'll delete the word add and say by changing the scope.
To read, because right now it reads employees. We want it to read full-time, non-union employees. So it only applies to that.
But if a part-time employee gets hurt on the job,
They get
they
workers' comp.
they get workers' comp.
Right.
If a full-time employee gets hurt on the job, we continue to pay them and the workers' comp comes to reimburse the taxpayers?
Yes, one way or the other. Either they get that and we make up the difference. Typically, we get the check back. But
We
they get full
receive the
salary
check
for up
back
to a
from the
year.
employee.
We can do it either way, but they get 100% pay for up to a year.
But does this say enough to indicate that's what we're trying to do?
Basically, by changing the word employee, the scope of the whole section only applies to full-time employees now. So that's all that was necessary. This is not workers' comp. This is
I
the
understand
extra
that.
benefit.
I understand.
Yeah, no, I think this does it pretty clear.
Okay.
I just might add that this is in accordance, at least the administrator indicated to me, with general practices
Other
in
towns.
other
and such.
towns.
Yeah, we did check some other towns to make sure, but I had never seen it anywhere. I think it was an oversight in our policy.
Well, it's good we're straightening it out. Anyone else? What's your pleasure?
Move the resolution.
A second?
A motion is second. Questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson, please. Roll call.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Number 6, public hearing and adoption of ordinances. A, 1773-2014, amending Article 2 of Chapter 66 of the Township Code, providing that all township employees utilize direct deposit. It's a public hearing. Does anyone in the public wish to speak? Jim? Identify yourself, please.
Jim Kerrigan, Laurel Street, Center City, Laureldale.
Thank you.
First of all, everyone mandates direct deposit. Social Security does, Division of Pensions, Transamerica, which is my annuity. They all mandate it. Rowan University, they started mandating it July 1st, which is last week. So this needs to be mandated, mandatory.
Okay. Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak? Anyone else in the public wish to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second?
Motion
second.
is second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to adopt 17.
I would like to talk about it first.
Well, I think if I'm making a motion, we put it on the table if it's seconded for discussion.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
I'm making a motion for 1773-2014 to adopt.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion?
Yes. I pointed out when this came up before that I believe we missed the boat. Governor Christie signed this into law on March 14th of 2013. We had 16 months to take care of trying to get it onto our books. The mayor's advisory, which we got on May 29th, said that we had to have a prior ordinance on the books already. I asked Phil today, which he had to leave for an emergency apparently. I asked that the prior ordinance, which I understand there isn't one, that's why it can't be given to me anyway, that in order to do this ordinance, you had to have a prior ordinance on the books. I believe this ordinance is illegal, and that's why I absolutely cannot vote for it. The law was cited. I handed the mayor's advisor, I think, to Mr. Sandman when we were here talking about it before, and we haven't done step 1, so we can't go to step 2, and that's my objection. Whether I personally agree with doing direct deposit or not is not the issue. The issue is a point of law, and the law, I believe, we are not in compliance with it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Sandman, any comments?
Yeah. Mrs. Dix provided me with a document that came out of the League of Municipalities regarding the bill. It is irrelevant. I look at the statute. And the statute in Section 3A sets forth the system which existed heretofore, which allowed for the opting into a direct deposit. Section B, which is the new part of the statute, says that on or after July 1st, the governing body may adopt an ordinance requiring mandatory direct deposit. So that's what's occurring now. What is misleading is it goes on to say that if the governing body provides such a direct deposit ordinance, compliance with an employee shall be mandatory. No ordinance or resolution shall be adopted under subsection A of this section after July 1. Well, subsection A is the optional provision, and subsection B is the new part of the law allowing the governing body to make it mandatory. So I believe that it is legal.
You think it is? Bob, is that, the law you're reading from, is that part of the NJSA 52:14-15F? That's what's in the mayor advisory that I gave you at the last meeting.
52:14-15A et sequitur.
Okay,
And that provision is cited in the ordinance.
got it.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
the prohibition that you're referring to applies to subpart A and not subpart B.
Okay.
Okay. we
I
have the
might add, we did discuss this at the last meeting, and I thought we got a legal opinion on it also.
We did.
You did, but I hadn't had time to research it because it was sprung at the meeting, and I've since then gotten Eileen's information and researched it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have motion and second. Mrs. Anderson, okay, roll call.
Mrs. Dix?
Mrs. Anderson, I'm still going to vote no, and it's because there's a split opinion regarding what people would prefer to have for their own paychecks. I no longer question the legality of this ordinance, I simply question that it isn't what all of our employees want. You happen to be one of them.
Ms. Scatto?
In the name of process efficiency and saving $2,500 annually, I vote yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
I concur with Ms. Gatto's comments, yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes, I would definitely approve
Mayor
of this.
Silva?
It's like all four of us agree. Thank you.
What did you make a smart remark?
I'm sorry?
What did?
Yes, Mrs. Anderson.
You were right, Mrs. Anderson.
All four of us agree, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's called back talk.
She didn't hear.
Next item on the agenda is B, 1774-2014, authorizing the sale of the easement to the Hamilton Township Municipal Utilities Authority on Block 1132-02, Lot 2403. It's a public hearing. Is anyone who wishes to speak on this?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to adopt 1774-2014.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Scatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, the next item on the agenda
Is the consent.
is the consent agenda. I'd like to pull out B.
Which one, Mayor? I didn't hear you.
B.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move items, consent agendas.
Before you do, Amy, on 7I, the Oakcrest Band, August 9th and 10th is tentative, depending on availability because of a potential conflict with someone who asked to be put on the calendar but has not yet turned in their papers. If they don't turn in their papers by Wednesday, those dates will go to the band parents.
I move 7A, including A1 on the addition through I.
Okay. The motion?
I'll
I'm sorry,
second it.
excluding B.
I'll second, and I just would ask that, I did ask today, but Phil didn't get to it. The triathlon application is not dark enough. I cannot read the handwritten parts of it, and I don't hear you.
He was going to put a cleaner one out.
To all of us? Okay.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, just before we vote too, I just wanted to highlight the Lake Lenape Triathlon date of July 12th. And I also wanted to highlight letter D, which is asking you for the authorization to sign a letter on behalf of, or for the Rotary, in support of the Rotary Club's 60th annual Halloween parade. And I'm a member of that committee. The committee did ask for us as a township committee to consider just kind of giving that backing. We have done it before as a township committee when we were looking to save the parade, and we did have a positive response with a letter coming from the township. So, you know, again, we're working very hard to make the 60th anniversary of the Halloween parade the biggest and best yet in Hamilton Township. So your support on this in particular is appreciated by the Rotary Club.
Thank you for your comments.
I would like to make the statement, as I did last year, in regards to the triathlon. I do have, people coming to our facility, and sometimes they get, told that they have to go all the way around, and, it makes it impossible to get to our facility. We have a figure skating club and also have classes from 10 to 11, and we have session from 11 to 1. And I don't think, I think that they should be given a pass or something to say, yes, we can go through, because and other times it has just been a nightmare for people of the skating rink to get through.
Judy, are they being directed to come in 13th Street?
Yeah, when they get to 13th Street, they're told to come around the other way, or I don't even know what way they're told to, but they're not able to come through the 13th.
Mr. Mayor, just wondering if the solicitor might want us to pull H out so that Mrs. Link could potentially vote separately. I'm not sure if there's a conflict of interest there or not.
Well, then you want to remake your motion?
I don't know if we have to do that, I'm just asking.
Well, maybe I misunderstood you, but I heard you to say A through I,
Except B.
Except B.
except B.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I meant L. I
Okay.
thought L was I on the second page,
Okay, so would you please amend your motion
to exclude H as well.
to go from A to L excluding B and H?
Yes, that's what I amend my motion to.
Thank you.
Whoever seconded.
I did, I'll amend my second.
But there was a recommendation made. Is that something that can be considered? And that is that people be given some kind of pass or something? Is that feasible?
Well, let's talk about it separately. Let's go through this, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, let's do H first. Go ahead, Rod.
No, my question, well, there was a recommendation made by Judy, and I'm just wondering if that's something that is feasible.
Mike, would you just look into the fact that, Chief, you got a moment? Would you come to the mic, please?
Yes, sir.
Mike to the mic.
Michael, as was the last big triathlon that came through from Atlantic City all the way up, I mean, I've gotten a few phone calls, and people wanted to know how they were going to get out the end of the street, and I think it was you and your department said to me, as long as they could show they live there, the officer at the end would let them through and let them in. Is there that any possibility, if they're coming through that particular day and we have a patrol officer out there, to be able to gain access to a facility that they normally would utilize? Would they be given access to it?
Probably not, sir.
Because it's a timed event.
Here's the reason. For the triathlon, the central location of the triathlon is right in front of the cove, to where they have the athletes to swim, then they come out with the bike, and then where they have the run, and they have their time clock and everything else. The congestion in there is probably 500-600 people, including
Sure.
spectators and so forth. To get somebody through there safely would be virtually impossible. So the choices are, don't have the triathlon, or allow them to come through 13th Street. 13th Street, all township residents, obviously, they would be allowed to come down, except from that, I guess, Lake Drive to Lenape Avenue. They would probably
Gotcha.
have to park and walk,
Okay.
because there's simply no room in there.
But there's access through 13th Street, correct?
Absolutely. They're instructed to allow anybody that lives back there, if you can prove that you live back there, you are permitted access. The same way on Weymouth Road, it's blocked off to through traffic. However, local residents are permitted to take their vehicles if they're coming in off Nispa Road or
Sure.
606. They can go home.
Yeah, but my clients cannot come through if they don't prove that they are a resident. They're not residents. Is
Well,
there
I
a pass
think-
that we could get them? I mean, like, we'll book parties, we'll have like 30 members in that party, or I have, 25 people in our classes. Is it possible to, give them, as they book a party, give a pass to them?
Absolutely. If they're coming through it, it's legitimate business. I mean, it starts at 8, I believe, so.
Correct.
Your superior athletes, unlike myself, are usually through there, are usually done running in about, I'd say, start to finish, 50 minutes, and then you have people like me 2 hours and 50 minutes later
Days.
coming in.
Days.
But days maybe,
Days.
maybe weeks, but they're the serious competitors, your first 25 to 30, the rest of them do it, because it's an accomplishment, and they like to compete.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think if you afford them a pass, it's not a problem just letting the people over here, because it's going to be the Mays Landing Fire Company anyway, over here on
Okay.
13th Street, just letting them know that if they do have a pass, to allow them to go into the skating center.
Yeah.
Perhaps she could get you a copy of the pass so that your officers in the fire department know what the pass will look like.
No, we're willing to work with everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
There's just no way we get them on Park Road, Mrs. Link. It's
no,
impossible.
no. Park Road is not necessary. I think the 13th is where they have
You're
been
probably not
turned
going to have an
away.
issue till about 10:15, and then more than likely, the roads are going to be opened up anyway, except for some stragglers,
Right.
for the most part. So even your 11 o'clock session, it's usually pretty much.
The worst is
10:30.
past.
Yeah, it's our figure skaters, they're practicing,
If you can get them passes, we'll get them through.
they have regional, nationals to go to in the next couple days, you
If
know.
you can just email me a copy of it, I'll make sure it gets in the
You're like a
reading.
Okay.
woman.
Okay, Judy?
Look at you.
All right?
Yeah, Mike, the choke point that you didn't stress, the choke point is when the swimmers come out on the bikes and head down Park Road. When those bikes are coming back, there still could be bikes going out, and then we have two-way traffic of bikes coming up Park Road and runners right at the driveway to the Cove, runners trying to take off and turn around and come back. And obviously, I've been watching it for 24 years, so it's obvious the real choke point is between the driveway opening of the Cove to Lake Drive area, but you still need to shut the road. I wholeheartedly agree. It's very annoying to me when I see some of the people that insist they want to drive their cars through there in the middle of a race. It is a race. It's not a walk in the park.
Mike, just do the best you can to work with everyone. We appreciate your efforts, okay?
Yeah, I don't think
We'll get
that
them
our
Good.
people would only come down 13th straight to the rink.
All we ask is have them come down 13th, and we'll make the arrangements, as we would for the homeowners.
Okay.
Because that'll only be dealing
Thank
with
you,
the
Chief.
runners on 13th. There
Thank
won't
you,
be any
Chief.
bikes.
Yeah.
Can we make a motion to approve the resolution on letter H?
I have another question on it.
Second.
For me?
Okay, we have a second.
No, not for you.
Motion is second. Any questions? Good, Rodney.
Just the question is, this is asking for the resolution of no objection for an event that's occurring on the 12th, and today is the 7th. I'm just wondering why this is so late. Wasn't there,
5 days away. Sure when we received it.
What was the date of the application?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know.
What's that?
That's,
I
it's
don't have an
illegible.
objection, I don't have an objection, I'm just wondering why.
We met directly before the last meeting, deadline for the agenda, and I did not get it on the last agenda, so it is on the agenda for approval.
Maybe it would be better, since he plans this so far, he's probably advertising this in February. Maybe he should come in long before June, maybe like May, and make sure there are no issues, or it gives us the opportunity to work out the issues.
I do reach out to the regular event folks for all the events that we have on a yearly basis, well in advance of the time that we would expect their application.
And he had, we gave him a little bit of a warning last year about his timeliness.
That's right, I remember those discussions.
Yep,
Well,
but thank you.
you're welcome.
Appreciate your efforts.
Mr. Mayor, before you vote, I feel compelled to say what I'm about to say.
Okay.
The last time I was involved in the triathlon, I won't tell you how many years ago that was. I did the bicycle event, Charlie Pritchard did the running event,
And Joe Nichols.
and Joe Nichols did the swimming event,
The
and
relay.
we won.
Thank you, that's well put. Okay, that motion is second.
Something just, something not quite right with
I didn't
that.
tell that part, Joe.
What was that record time?
I have a motion and a second, and then, any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I asked to have B pulled out. Bob, would you,
Before we go to B too, I just want to also state for the record that Joe also forced me to do the triathlon, the one and only time I ever did it. I did the bike leg, and I don't think he was very pleased with me as a team member. But we finished, and that's all we cared about.
He was very pleased with you in every other way.
Bob, let me just read it out loud so the public hears it, okay? Item B is authorize Stephen Eisendorfer to apply for an extension of the protection from litigation provided under the final judgment of compliance and repose, Hardin Highway LLC versus the Township of Hamilton et al.
What this is that there was first of all, we start out for the public's benefit. There is a Council on Affordable Housing. It is a government entity that was formed out of a lawsuit emanating from the Mount Laurel decision in 1982, which required municipalities to provide for low and moderate income housing. It has gone through many phases and stages. It has gone to the Supreme Court a couple of times, and the Township Committee, on my advice, hired Stephen Eisendorfer, who is an expert in COA, to represent their legal interest in this matter. Out of this lawsuit, Harding Highway LLC versus Hamilton Township, I was not the attorney involved, but my understanding is that certain areas of the township had to be zoned to allow for this type of housing. And in the context of that lawsuit, a consent order was entered into by the litigants, who took the position that our ordinances did not provide for fair, low and moderate income housing. In any event, 4 properties were rezoned to allow for it, and one of the properties was owned by Harding Highway LLC. At the time of the litigation, COA was going through a number of administrative problems, let's say, where they had not yet formulated the exact number of requirements for not only Hamilton Township, but for every other municipality in the state. Not knowing what our requirements were, the order of Judge Nugent, followed by an order of Judge Isman, allowed a window of protection of 5 years in anticipation that during that 5-year period, we would get the number that Hamilton Township was required to satisfy of low and moderate income housing units. As we sit here today, that number has not been derived. So the governing body, this governing body, and any other governing body that comes after them would not know exactly what we have to do to fulfill the requirements. There are some of them that would be fulfilled with respect to the Harding Highway property. There are others that are pending. And what we thought best to do on advice of counsel was to go back to court in that litigation, hiring an expert who specializes in that area to extend that 5-year protection period for 2 additional years, in the hope that COA would at that point in time tell Hamilton Township and every other municipality, this is what your obligations are. Whether it's 200, 300, 400 units, we don't know. At the same time, Harding Highway LLC has some approvals, and let's say they were to construct, I don't know, I'll pick a number, 100 units. And then we have another application presently in that wants to construct another 100. Well, if our number's only 200, then we're satisfied, and we don't want suits from other builders telling us that we're not satisfying it. So it was the opinion, well, I won't say that. It is the consensus, I believe, of the governing body that the wisest thing to do and the most inexpensive thing to do is to protect Hamilton Township from future lawsuits for what are called builder's remedies. Until such time as we know what the requirement is, we don't know what we're obligated to do. The number could come in much higher than we anticipate or much lower. So why risk? You know, the Township Committee can deal with the present one, and if that goes in, that's 100 units, maybe we're done. But we need to be protected to know. And I think that's as succinctly as I can say it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's your pleasure, committee.
Make a motion.
Second.
A motion is second. Any other questions or comments?
That requires a roll call vote.
Yes. You have a roll call, Mrs. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carry.
Thank you. Okay. We got the next item on the agenda is personnel. A, the appointment of part-time clerk in the construction office,
Brenda Yunker.
Brenda Yunker, at the salary of $13.35 per hour, effective July 14th, 2014.
It's $13.85, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Before we
just-
move the next one, I think we need to have an hourly rate. It's not stated on the document.
Mr. Mayor, on the part-time clerk, I just want to highlight that that was a backfill. We had the part-time clerk retire.
Okay.
The minimum, so you know?
Do you have the late item list?
Yeah, there is no,
No name?
no, there's a name, there's no hourly rate.
There's, it would be the minimum for the lifeguard if,
Is it?
yes, we'll start her at the minimum, because it'd be her first
So
time.
it's B, promote Deanna Sindow from beach badge checker to lifeguard effective immediately at the hourly rate, the starting hourly?
The minimum hourly rate of any of the others. She just got her certification this past weekend, so
And
we
open
need a
water.
lifeguard, in open water, yeah. And we need another lifeguard.
Make the motion.
Minimum meeting, 8:25?
No, not minimum wage, minimum pay for, under our lifeguards.
Whatever
Whatever the
the
lowest
starting
one
salary
is, the
is.
starting one, she'll get the lowest one, yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit more than 8:20.
Do I have a
Second.
A motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, approvals. Minutes of May 12, 2014, executive session.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2,
I
June...
assume that you were all there? for all
Well, that's why I'm
three?
taking them individually in case, I'm just not assuming that. Number 2, June 2nd, 2014, regular meeting.
So moved.
Second?
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And 3, July 1, 2014, special meeting.
So moved.
Second?
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, payroll and bills totaling $7,265,560.45.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion is second. Questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson, a roll call, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carry.
Thank you. Reports. Mr. Administrator.
Yes, just two brief things. I just wanted to announce that Atlantic City Electric has launched a new streetlight reporting system. And I would encourage all of our residents to report streetlights out because we pay for them even when they're not working. So they have a new online system, should be easy to use. So please, if you see a light out, report it.
I hate to tell you this, but I tried to report 2 lights out at the Cove over the weekend, and they will not accept the poll numbers that I took off the polls. So I am really not happy because I reported in 2013 at least 40 streetlights because we do pay for them. And I had prompt responses. I could monitor them and see that they were repaired quickly. One was repaired in 1 day because of the neighborhood it was in. And now with this, I sent them a message that
Aileen,
something has to happen.
Email me the poll numbers.
We have a
We'll be
meeting.
meeting with...
I already sent it into the electric company through a
We'll be
message.
meeting with Ken Mosket within the
Yeah.
next week, and we'll bring it up to him.
Find
Because
out
they're
why
going
it's
to be meeting
going.
with us about...
Maybe it's just wrinkles in the new
The
system.
fact that they're bought out in certain
Oh,
paperwork.
Pepco, you mean?
Yep,
Okay.
paperwork that they have to...
Still encourage everyone to report them because we pay for them even when they're out.
Yeah, maybe because they were on the Cove property that the pole was not being recognized, where if I reported the pole in front of my house, maybe that pole would have gone, but that's not the pole that's out. I don't know what the problem was.
Yeah, maybe
But
it's just the new
And it was
system.
over the weekend, so I haven't addressed it yet.
Okay. The other thing I just wanted to mention, we did receive a payment in lieu of taxes from ARC, about $2,000. I don't know if you all saw that, but
No, that's good. I think that's noteworthy. I think every year they do it, Michael.
They do.
They do as part of it, and the fact that they appreciate being in the community, and they realize we don't collect any real estate taxes from them, but they did feel in some small way that they want to contribute to the community. So thank
helps.
you for bringing that up.
Yep, thank you.
Mr.
That's all.
That it? Mr. Solicitor?
Yeah, I reported on there was a request from the developers of Delilah Oaks to provide the land to the township. I reported on that 2 meetings ago. I went to the developer, and they've agreed to split the cost of a title search, title report.
Okay.
And on behalf of the township, we retained Bob Bishop. He's given me a verbal that it's okay. I'm going to get a written report, then we can proceed with a Phase 1 and do whatever you choose at that time.
Okay.
At the last Hamilton Township Industrial Commission meeting, Land Resources Services appeared through Trevin and Jeffrey and made a presentation to the Industrial Commission, somewhat like the one they did here. And, excuse me, there is some issues with respect to access to the site, and there is some minor issues with respect to plumage on adjoining lands, one of which is not owned by the township or the commission. I've discussed it with Michael. I need the services of Bob Smith, our engineer, to assist me to help to make suggestions to reconfigure some lots, to take that minor area of disturbance out of those 3 lots that are adjoining what used to be the landfill. So we are progressing to the point where we're now going to start talking about conveyance documents. Bob and I will work on this between now and the next Industrial Commission meeting, but that is progressing.
Good.
And that's all I have to report.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, Mike, under Administrator, did you want to address the issue of the dryers that we were discussing? And put it out to some of the options to see if we want to
Okay.
have the solicitor take a direction?
Yeah, my understanding, and I actually did a little research on it today, the problem we have is not new. A lot of dryers were hooked up that don't vent to the outside, probably all over town. Unfortunately, those that rent their units now get the rental inspection, and during the rental inspection, they've picked up that the dryers that, according to their manufacturer specifications, requires them to be vented outside are not being vented outside. So although they've been doing it that way for years, now that we're inspecting, we're finding it and telling them to fix it. The fix is pretty expensive, trying to vent something where it's difficult to get to the outside wall or purchase a new dryer when there's nothing wrong with your existing dryer, because there are new ones that are self-contained. They take the moisture out of the air. And I guess, I'm not sure the fix. I mean, there's a number of things that, with their attorney's advice, can we grandfather something that's been there forever? Or
1973.
Yeah, so
That's
pretty much
the
forever.
first issue, right? Can we
Can we grandfather them? Can we put them on notice instead of making it be corrected immediately? Can we put them on notice that, when you change your dryer, you have 2 choices. One is you put in the dryer that doesn't require to be venting, or 2, you do have to vent it. I don't know that we should say you can forever leave it. Because all we're saying is you have to put it in according to the manufacturer's specifications. It's really not a requirement of ours that they be vented outside unless the manufacturer says so. So if that's something we can do, knowing that they've been that way.
And that we don't seem to have a problem.
Well,
How do they compensate for that venting? Don't they have a collection?
There's
bucket
well,
or something?
the ones that are built, they build in a system that's basically a dehumidifier in the dryer, is my understanding. So it pulls, the humidity is the problem, and that's the problem of this whole thing. You may not see what problems this thing's causing if it's causing mold inside your walls. You may not see it, because that's the concern. I don't think it's the heat from the dryer as much as the moisture and what it could be doing. So I think that we should stop short of saying you can leave them there forever, that, we grandfather it, when your dryer goes, now you have to make a change. And really, it still would be only the rentals. I think that's part of the concern here, is that it's only the rentals that get caught, but it's the manufacturer's design, it's the manufacturer's specification. I don't know any other way to resolve the matter, because if they're not installed according to the spec.
But if humidity is, what you're explaining is the issue, how is humidity, which makes mold, you just said, how has that become a fire hazard? Because it was being portrayed as a fire hazard before.
Well, I don't know if the lint coming out can be a fire hazard as well. I know they make lint traps where you can, matter of fact, they used to sell them as an energy thing years ago. But again, there may be a fire hazard. I'm not an expert, I want to make that very clear, but I believe one of the concerns is moisture, and that these new dryers dehumidify it, but I don't know about the lint or whether there's a fire hazard as well. I'd rather Frank speak to that. But I can certainly have that conversation with him. I can speak with Bob to see if this is a viable option between now and our next meeting, and if it is, maybe we can do an amendment or some kind to, if grandfathering is appropriate or not. But I wouldn't do this without some legal advice, and without Frank, because of what Committeewoman Dix just brought up.
No, in the meantime,
Frank involved.
and don't mind me, what percentage of the residents of Meadowbrook
Owner occupied?
have the original type of dryers in there with the,
There were no dryers originally. The only original dryers were a little tiny 110 units. Go to the microphone, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Anybody that wants to speak should come on up.
Yeah, but they were the little ones, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you dry one sock at a time is what the people used to tell me.
Clothesline.
they're small units.
Hello, my name's Anthony Battistelli. I'm with Meadowbrook. I own 5 condominiums in there that I rent out. I've been there since the 1980s.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Tony, pull the microphone over to you.
Okay, I'm
That's
sorry.
it.
I remember when the places were built. They were built without dryers. And if you wanted a dryer, they actually took a Sears dryer, a little 110 unit that they still make today, stuck it in a closet, and plugged it in with 110 power. It was vented nowhere. It went nowhere. Most of us, everybody in there basically uses the lint trap and the water bucket that's in there. The machine that you're talking about, that you say is a replacement for it, basically the tenant has to do that with that machine. They have to take out the water, put water into it, and clean the lint trap, which is no different than the lint trap that we use now, except this is a lot more accessible.
do they clean it? Do they clean it?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't.
Now the hazard comes in.
Well, there really isn't a hazard because they're not hot enough to create a fire. The lint is full of moisture, just at that spot. I don't think there's enough moisture coming out of these units as would come out of your bathroom if you took a shower. The buildings have been there since 1972 to 72 to 75 is when they were built. They were built in stages, but they're all identical. There's no problem there with mold that I know of. And I think I would know. I have units there.
Can you explain the collection of water by a bucket? Where does that come out
The tenant
of?
just pours, maybe once a week, pours a quart of water in. That's all it is. It's a small amount of water in a bucket. The lint comes into the top. The water, basically, that's the way it was designed, was to hold the lint. It was never designed, the moisture was never a problem, I don't believe.
So the comment that you're making, and obviously we know the only time this would come up would be on a reinspection and a change of tenancy, correct?
Yes.
Right. Now, in the meantime, how many other units in all of Meadowbrook do you think utilize this system?
Everyone. I don't know if anybody does. I think now there might have been a couple of people that bought these newer ones. because they had to comply, or they couldn't get certificates of occupancy.
When they buy a unit in there, is it inspected?
Not-
Just the
not
CO and the
Just the
carbon
CO.
carbon monoxide detector.
We don't know that, do we? Because if Frank's doing it.
No, they're not inspected.
They're not.
They're not
For
inspected.
anything except the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors.
Okay.
Just for-
I'd like to make one other comment. At this time, I have an apartment completely, well, we just closed it in. We had a flood upstairs, and it ruined one of my units. All of the sheetrock was out of the place. And I can tell you this, there is no safe way on the first floor units
The vent?
to put the vent. Upstairs, possibly you can go up and through the roof, although dryer manufacturers do not recommend that either.
Right.
They're covering they don't recommend anything if you get right to it. But this is reality. On the first floor units, there is no way in heck I'm putting in that. It would have so many turns in it, it would be then you would be talking about a fire.
Fire hazard.
It'd be somewhere between, under the best conditions, it all depends on how your heating system is put in, which, whoever put the heating system in, the vents. Under the best situation, it would probably be 28 feet long, and under a worse situation, 40 feet long. This is up in the ceiling, making turns between two units to get outside. They just were never designed for that. What I have done in two units since our last meeting, since we were here before, I've taken dryers and got rid of everything and put them, the dryers in the front closet as you come in the door. But now we run into an electricity problem. It's very, very expensive. If I wasn't involved in all this other work, it would be really, really expensive because I've already got the plaster down and stuff like that. It's really just not a very good situation. And the main thing is, it's never been a problem. We have no mold problem, really, in there. We don't have mold problems.
And Michael, there's been no history that I've heard of.
Of fires,
know
no.
Of a fires had in there with regard to that issue.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think when, at least I was talking to Mike about it, and I think a couple other committee members must have spoke to Mike about it as well. I think what we wanted to look for tonight, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is direction from committee about allowing Bob to spend some time to take a look at the residential housing requirements versus the requirements of an owner-occupied building and the
Tenant occupied.
No. Tenant occupant is the residential rental housing requirements versus owner-occupied requirements and what is written in the International Construction Code, which is where this is all coming from, where we have something that's reasonable, safe, and legal among all these different avenues, knowing that we have an aged building and we don't have a problem in terms of mold or fire issues. I think that was what we were looking for, an opinion from Bob to say, here's what we could do. And that's when we were brainstorming the grandfathering option. Is that legal? Is that safe? Is that reasonable? Is it possible for us to make note of it on an inspection that this particular thing didn't pass so that the owner and the renter is aware and understands that possible risk, but that the change doesn't necessarily have to be made? Those were just some of the things that we kicked around. So the question was, could some of those options or another option be reasonable, safe, and legal?
Bob,
So-
do you think
I
if we-
think also the addition of when that dryer breaks, replace it with a
Well,
better dryer.
that's a good, well, that is a compromise, because at least now you're not replacing a good dryer until it needs to be. It's not the perfect solution, but
Then you still have to run these vents.
you could buy the units that have it all built in.
People are not going to, they're not a viable thing, believe me.
They're not.
The little ones that they used to give out, if I have that in an apartment and somebody comes and looks at it, they don't rent the apartment. People want a washer and a dryer that works.
Right. They don't make dryers, regular-sized dryers with the self-contained
No.
dehumidifier?
No, they're smaller units.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't know
they're
that.
very
It's one
complicated
sock at a time.
and expensive.
We'll have to,
Yeah.
it's going to take some research. I don't think I can answer the
Yeah,
question
There's a
tonight.
lot more to this than that appears.
And if
on
I could
the
get your
surface.
contact information, that would be helpful.
Oh, that'd be great, yeah. Actually, I tried to call them a couple of times, call that office, and talk to somebody there, have them come out and look at the situation with everything exposed. They never return your phone calls. All I ever get is an answering machine. It's,
Well, they have to follow the policy, but they brought it to our attention. But I'll be honest with you, when I first heard it, I didn't think there was any remedy, because the only thing the code says is you have to install it according to the manufacturer's specification. How can that not be reasonable? But the situation gets bigger as you learn more. So let me just say, I know that I can't answer the question. I don't even know, as Committeewoman Dix said, if there's a fire issue to it. So let me talk with Frank. Let me get, if I can get you to write down your name and number.
Sure.
And then.
In the meantime,
We can
let's
talk.
let's have Bob look into that, see if there's a grandfather, if there is, and what other type of legalities that would come into play in this if we decided to change it.
Perfect.
The issue of fire safety was brought up at the issue of fire safety was brought up at the May 19th meeting, and when I believe the conversation was along the lines of, how can you have two separate sets of rules? You can have the exact same unit. There's 144 units. If they're 50% owner occupied, they're under one set of rules, and the other 50%, 72 units, are under a different set of rules. And why can't we make the rules match? And that's where that was, I think Primavera was here at the time that happened, and Amy says if it's a safety issue, it's a safety issue. But I think we need to find a solution, because this is it doesn't make any sense that you can have an owner-occupied unit do what they want, and if it's
let's
tenant-occupied,
let's
exactly,
find
but where I'm,
Amy has said.
Let's
can't-
just find
Don't-
out when
don't
Bob
repeat
comes
what
back
she
with
has
the
said.
information. We may hit a brick wall, or we may have
Well,
an
that's,
avenue.
yeah, that's not an avenue of debate. We made a decision consciously to treat rental units different than owner-occupied. That was made across the board. This is just one small piece of that decision. So, I mean, what we have to do is to find out if there is a compromise that protects the health, safety, and welfare, but provides relief that,
and the comment that was made was that this could lead to an amendment to the International Property Maintenance Code that we adopted.
Right.
And if it were to come to that, the other piece is, if we were going to make an amendment, we should see if there's any other amendments, do it all in one ordinance, so we don't have piecemeal ordinances. And the other one was those orange X's with the placards, and that
That's-
was May 19th.
yeah, that's taken care of. But if there's any others, let me know, but I wouldn't want to hold this up
No.
if we don't know them.
I don't disagree, I don't want to hold it up either.
You all right with that?
I'll
Okay.
contact
That it?
you once I
Thank
get
you.
the meat
So
of it.
hopefully that'll just at least be the beginning of looking at this thing with, and maybe hopefully have by the next meeting some answers, okay?
I don't think it's the beginning. I think it's further progress, because I think as we looked at it initially, it compounded, I think, is the problem. Yeah.
But again, there's things you're balancing,
Right,
so-
exactly.
Okay.
I know there is sometimes an impetus to this whole, problem, because in order to get their CO to, rent to a new tenant, they have to comply. And I know it's been time-sensitive for,
Absolutely.
Right.
many
Absolutely.
people.
Okay.
So, we want to.
Yeah, definitely for the next meeting, we need to have an answer.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before you go on to my colleague, there is one other thing I am proud to announce that I forgot. One of Hamilton Township's citizens happens to be my neighbor. Jim McLean was just sworn in this week as the Atlantic County prosecutor.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Good.
Very good. I saw that in the paper. Thank you. Mr. Engineer.
Good evening, Mayor. I have nothing to add to my written report.
Thank you. Township Committee. Judy?
To be me. Okay, I read on July 4th the progress of the dam, and I know there was a quote as far as how much the Atlantic County is putting into the remedies for the dam, but I'm wondering, does that include our contribution as well? I mean,
Well, you have to look at it in two phases. One, there's the dam issue, Lenape Dam issue, excuse me, which is in mediation right now. And there's also the embankment that runs up to the fish ladder. Now, that problem with the embankment was created as a result of the placement of the fish ladder there. And I think there's discussion that some of the money that's going to have to be spent on that, whether we're responsible in the township, because we weren't part of putting that fish ladder in. And it did create a large void in the embankment. It's about a 25-foot void, and they do have a remedy for it, and there's a cost involved in it. So to answer your question, at this point, I don't know if we have a final number, Judy, and what the balance and what the differentiation's going to be. Am I correct in that, Mr. Solicitor, from...
As a general matter, Township is a 50-50 partner with the county. And as a general matter, the Lenape Dam Committee composes of 3 Township folks, 3 county folks, and if there's a tie, the final vote is cast by the county engineer on each and every issue. Because of the mediation going on the construction of the Coffer Dam, and because they're part of the same functioning unit, I'm choosing my words carefully, because that mediation is subject to a confidentiality agreement by law. But I think that the mayor has accurately stated my position in what will become the negotiation. The county has retained an engineering firm. They are preparing plans and specifications that are almost done to fix the western embankment problem. There's 3 elements to the dam: the western embankment, the Coffer Dam, and the spillway. There is no reason for alarm right now. And what is going on between our portion of the Lenape Dam Committee and the county has been addressing these issues for about 1.5 years. And we're very close to going out on bid to rectify the western embankment problem. The cost of that is an issue that will be open. And I think that's as far as I can go with it.
I just would like to know, well, it probably would not be answered. Is the fish ladder going to be, is it going to stay there?
I think so.
Okay. All right, so moving on here. I've noticed that our enforcement has done a lot to get the grass cut for the various people who were not in compliance, and I think that's great for, you want your community to look nice and also people to comply to that ordinance. So I noticed that this is really moving along. And I'd like to also say that 7 members of the Young Skating Figure Club are going to compete at nationals in Lincoln, Nebraska, starting on the 27th of July.
Nice.
So
Good.
I hope they do well.
Thank you. Rodney?
Just a couple of items. One, the hometown celebration was a great event. I don't know how many people attended, but I think the Merchants Association and all those who contributed to it did a fine job. It was, and I hope we continue with such celebrations. And had the opportunity to meet with various people in the community and hear about some of our problems. But it was a very good event, and I commend everyone associated with it. We talked about transportation, and I think I indicated before that I'm on the Citizen Advisory Committee. We had which represents 4 counties, and we rotate the meetings around at the various counties. The last meeting was last week in Ocean City, I just want to remind that it is open to, it's supposed to be, get input from citizens. So certainly any things that you have, and of course, obviously, the administration will address these also, but if there are any items that you're particularly concerned about, there's an avenue where they can be addressed. And you can either contact me or send directly. There was something in the newspaper about it. And I tell you, I will certainly be discussing some of the items that you've heard about and others in the future. Just thought I'd mention, I think I've mentioned previously that the Highway Transportation Funding Authority, the authority for the taxes, the gasoline taxes that fund that, it's about to, the funding is about to run out. And I don't know what our Congress is going to do about it, but that's a huge item and something to keep an eye on, because ultimately we get the funding from that just like every other community in the country does, so it's pretty important.
Don't look at me, I can't read it.
Dr. Bouchard is struggling with his
I know
handwriting.
you forgot the Pooch Parade.
I
We'll
can read
just,
Dr. Steffi's writing, but I don't know about yours.
All right, we'll just leave it at that. My pen ran out of ink, so.
There you go. Elaine?
It couldn't read your writing either. No, I attended Hometown 2, as Rodney said. I was there both days, and we had a great time with the ski show out on the lake and on the library's event with the children and the drawing and hanging all the pictures up. It was just a great time. I think, I don't know if the attendance was as high as it had been before, but it was a good weekend. On the grass cutting that Judy mentioned, because we had a meeting on it last week, I don't think Brett knows, but on Beach Lane, something made me drive through there after I left the chiropractor Thursday, and when you turn off of Benson, coming from Crocus, turning right onto Beach, there's this great big overgrown lot that the weeds are higher than my head, and it's more than weeds. It's actually hanging out over the curb. So I went home and looked on the tax map, and I'll give you one guess who owns it. The Township of Hamilton. So maybe we could get that machine that goes along the sides of the roads and cuts back at least 10 feet to clear the cartway on that street. There used to be a lake or something in there, but out by the street, it's literally hanging out over the curb, and that's that convex rolled curb in that development. But with the report coming from the police about the break-ins and things, that's so overgrown that it would be a heck of a hiding place if somebody was running. So maybe we could get that taken care of. And that's really all I have for tonight. We do have the triathlon on Saturday. We also have the April Kaufman Award at the American Legion in Summers Point for volunteers for veterans issues. That's at 1 o'clock on Saturday in Summers Point. But other than that, that's kind of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I also wanted to extend a congratulations on a wonderful hometown celebration to the Merchant Association. It was wonderful. I did miss day one because I did take vacation, much needed vacation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for not calling all week. I appreciated it. But I did stop by day two, and it was just as exciting as always. And I also wanted to thank Brett Knoll and Mike Patuski, our OEM, for their prep and their communications with regard to Hurricane Arthur. Thankfully, we didn't see much action, but you were prepped and ready, which is very much appreciated, so thank you. And I just wanted to, in terms of dates, have everybody mark their calendars. The Laureldale Fire Department is doing their second annual Laureldale Community Yard Sale. Spaces are on sale now, so if you live in Laureldale and would like to sell stuff, or if you don't live in Laureldale and like to sell stuff, come on out. It's a nice fundraiser for the fire department, and it's July 26th.
July 26th.
Yes. Their information is on their Facebook page. And that's about it. I'm gonna refrain from anything else because of Mr. Salmon. I've been a little bit of a emotional wreck tonight. I keep looking at that flag over there, and I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Joe.
People talked about the hometown celebration. Well, that's a great event. I want to talk about the park. I have to compliment the county for the work they've done in Lenape Park. Looks outstanding. The approach, everything about it, the pavement in there, it was so uniform this year. Not that it wasn't other years. You had definition this year that we didn't have in other years. And Judy and Rodney, I think the Pooch Parade was outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
So those animals were adorable. I know you took pictures of me with some of them, and the dog did look better, so thank you.
We had the greyhounds again this year.
It was a great event, and it's always nice to see so many people come into our community, the car show.
Oh, absolutely.
The number of people, I don't know if it was more or less, but it seemed to be a lot, and there was always people moving around, and I think all the events were so carefully planned and so well organized and laid out by the Merchants Association that I think all of us always feel proud every year to be part of it. And John, for you and the rest of the Mays Landing Merchants Association, Jenny, and everyone that worked with you to make that a success, thank you. I think it's great. Brett, I have to thank Public Works. I did receive a call, and I went down to take a peek at it over the weekend, Knights Avenue and Rose Boulevard. I noticed that it does seem to hold the water a little bit, and I know you had your crew out there at the storm drains cleaning it out, so I have to thank you for that. The nice thing about going through that area, and I've taken note of it, is that it's coming together with the pavement, the road pavement program. It's so noticeable in there. I mean, when you go back 3 or 4 years ago, the fact that you did section pavement in there, Bobby and Brett, with some of your recommendations, I think it's pulling the neighborhood together in that respect. And it looks 100% better than it ever did before.
Roger, question to that? Would they be going back tomorrow to finish up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was questioned tonight before I came here.
I know they'll go back. In fact, it came to my attention 2 or 3 days ago, and since it was the weekend,
Yeah, exactly.
I figured that we would get on it. But, you know, storm drain cleaning is obviously something that Brett knows a lot about, and you have to continually keep on top of it because of runoff and everything. So, Chief, I know the department has their hands full. I know the publicity about the rash of break-ins is not something anyone likes to talk about, but maybe it's indicative of what we're going through in our economy today, and the fact that there are people out there that try to supplement their income by doing what they do. And I know from the support that you've given everybody, you're going to catch those individuals, and eventually we'll see it come to a conclusion. So I wish you well and the rest of the department. With that, I'd like to open it up to the public. Anyone have any comments? John? And then you can go next, Deb.
John Kurtz, President of the Mays Landing Merchants Association. First, I want to touch on the hometown celebration. Thank you for all the compliments tonight. It's due to some many volunteers and members of the Merchants Association. We have over 117 members now, and we had many of them come out along with volunteers from a lot of different organizations who made it possible. And I wanted to particularly thank the police department, who the visibility was seen there over the 2 days, and that was important to keep our event safe. Public Works, who really helped keep our event clean in their trash and recycling efforts, and also our rescue squad, who was there both days, and if we would have had any kind of problem, they could have addressed it right there on the spot, but we didn't. It was a great event. The weather was perfect. And one thing our township residents look for at every event we're at is our township officials. So I really want to thank all 5 members of Township Committee who were present at that event, because it means a lot to the people to see our township officials there. The second day, the Sunday, by the way, we did estimate through drawings that we had and from parking, we had approximately 4,500 people over the 2 days.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
it was
It's a good
really
number.
actually very well attended. Sometimes the day it was a little less. Sunday didn't really get busy in the morning, but as soon as the churches let out, we were flooded with people, and the grounds filled up quickly, and the vendors were all happy. So it made a great time. And Sunday night, I just want to report that the Disney movie, we weren't sure how that was going to go, how many people are going to come out at dark, but a lot of people went home, apparently had dinner, and we had over 400 families and children out on the sandy area, sitting down at the tennis courts, watching the Disney movie Frozen, and they all stayed right to the very end. So it was a great event. I think it makes for a great community spirit, and that's why the Merchants Association does these things, and we thank you for the township's help also.
Appreciate
John,
your
where
comments.
was the screen held on that? I was out riding the bicycle, and I saw all those cars, and I forgot about the movie. I rode into the park to find out what happened, then I could see but was it on that building?
The screen was on the stage that was there for the band.
Okay, that
So
explains
this
why I
year, it
could
wasn't
see
out in the parking lot, it was facing the lake. We just thought for aesthetic purposes, it would look nicer, and it would provide the people to sit like on a beach.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly what they did, and it worked out extremely
Good.
well.
I was curious.
He's quite a guy, isn't he?
John, John,
Yes.
I had a request for maybe next year. The teenagers missed the pie eating contest.
Oh, yeah. We just couldn't work that out. It was a issue with Tasty Cake, but
Yeah, yeah.
we're working on it for next year. That was a big part of our event, but,
Yeah.
you know, considering that was the only one aspect we didn't have out, the movie sure made up for it, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And John, maybe you could comment on, was there any popcorn sold or anything else during
Yes,
the movie?
some
Because
of
there
the
were a lot of
vendors-
vendors that were still
Ice cream
there.
vendors sold out.
Yeah,
didn't
we had vendors that sold out. We also had vendors that opted to stay during the movie. That was their choice. And what we did is we moved them up closer to the tennis court area, or what we called the beach area, because they'd have a better chance at their vending there. And they had ice cream, popcorn, so even one of our food vendors, a fish guy, stayed there right till 11 o'clock.
Was that
So
sure
it
enough?
was-
Sure
yeah,
enough.
sure enough.
Yeah, that's good. I had some.
Yeah, so it worked out really well. It was extremely well organized, and I appreciate the compliments on that, but it takes a lot to put something like that together, and we thank all the members of the Merchants Association and the other organizations that helped us out.
Just one other general question. On that particular day, there was quite a bit of competition. I think there was something over in Hamilton.
Yes.
There was also, the Blueberry Festival. There was also the triathlon event. And I don't know what else there may have been.
Yeah, there was something going on the beach in Margate, too, a concert. But with all those things happening, to have the amount of people that come through the event as did, it's just wonderful to see that many people out. And comments from individuals about how great it was. People were coming up to the train ride, and parents were going for their wallet, wanting to know how much the train ride was, and we were able to tell them it's brought to you by the Merchants of Mays Landing. So that was it's a big plus to know that everything there that day, unless you bought food or bought something from a crafter, was free for both days, is quite an achievement.
John, I understand there's a 10-year contract on that Challenge AC, so there may be head-to-head competition on activities going in the future if they stay on the same weekend.
Right.
That it's head-to-head with our hometown.
Yeah, we
It's
are
just-
already working on that with the county and our committee. We're aware of some of those dates, and we have to really stay on top of that, but that's
Yeah.
an important factor.
That was the reason for the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank
Debbie?
Thank you.
Uh-oh, you got it written down?
Well, just a couple things. Debbie Kraus. I just wanted to tell you about the dryer vents. These are not gas dryers, so that usually makes a big deal with inspectors if it's gas compared to electric. The other thing is, since these buildings have been built, and I think starting in 1980, the DCA comes out every 5 years and inspects these units and has never had a problem with the way that the dryers are there and the dryers are vented. Also, anytime you rent to Section 8 in there, Section 8 comes out and does their own inspection, never had a problem with the dryer vents. So it's not, and then the township had come out, I've owned the unit since the mid-90s, never had a problem with the little box that the hose goes in, that has a little bit of water in it. Nobody has ever had a problem with it until we adopted this new code. So, and I did contact one of the guys in the county about the dryer and venting them. And he's a fire inspector, he had said to change it and to make them vent it would cause more of a fire hazard than it would be to leave it the way it is. These dryers that they're talking about right now that are ventless, they're about $1,000 or more, and it's the same principle as what we're doing right now. It's just in the dryer, and it still has to be changed, and I don't know where you change it, but I do know that the where it is right now coming into that little box, it's very accessible, and people see it and they change it. I've never had a problem with mold, no issues like that. But again, when I had gone to talk to Frank, Frank said that this is the way the code is, and I mean, he's following the code. We tried to find out about getting, the dryers vented out the building. And again, the fire inspector for the county told me it would be more of a fire hazard. He said that's why he had so many fires in Smithville, was because of the dryers being vented and I guess the distance. And if we do have to vent them, it's going to be more than 25 feet. I don't know what the code is, but you're going to have to take a leaf blower or something in there and go in every 3 to 6 months and blow these things out. And what happens if people, forget, and then you have a dryer fire and it's going to be like, okay, now we have people who have come in and said, we shouldn't have this because of, it's going to cause a fire. If it does cause a fire, who's responsible then? I mean, it's a hard decision, but I'll tell you, that box that is there is the same thing that these ventless dryers are doing. It's not any different than that box. I know what the code says. The code says it has to be the outside wall. But right now, I just mentioned 3 different agencies for all these years that have allowed those dryer vents to be, those boxes to be used. They do get cleaned. They're very easy to clean. And again, if you try to vent them out the side of the building or the front of the building, you're going to have problems.
Okay.
But again, they're not gas, and they have been approved all these years by DCA and
Section 8.
Township and
Section 8.
Section 8.
Good.
Yep.
Debbie, the email that was sent this afternoon that I picked up on the Township server would not allow me to open it. So just so it's understood, there must be something on the server for the Township that didn't let me click onto that website.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I didn't see it. I don't know if anybody else saw it.
I didn't see it. Jill told me that they were sending.
Yeah,
something
I couldn't
over.
open it.
Yeah, but, I mean, like I said, when you're looking into all this, again, I mean, all these agencies have, and there's never been a dryer fire over there that I've ever heard. So, I don't want to see one start.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Ladies coming down, Jim.
Good evening, Marge Wilson, Atlantic Realty Management. I'm just here on behalf of homeowners at Chancellor Place, just to ask if there's anything that you can
Can
do
you
to...
speak a little louder?
Anything you can do to assist with 142 Knightsbridge. That's the burned-out house, the partially rebuilt. We've kind of exhausted everything that we can do except to file a lawsuit against Bank of America, and it's been estimated we could spend about $20,000 on behalf of the association and may or may not get anywhere. So we're just wondering if there's any support the
Michael,
township can give.
wasn't there some efforts that, I know we've made as many as we could, and at one time, we thought we've gotten somewhere, and then, of course, Bank of America.
And we did too.
I know we boarded it up, but obviously, you go through there, and it's the same thing, and of course, it's not a happy time in the neighborhood.
Would you reiterate where the building is?
It's 142 Knightsbridge, and I received phone calls and deal with the board of directors on how we can approach this, or can we jointly work with the
Yeah,
township
okay,
to try
I
to
know where.
get
Good.
something done as far as either just demolish the house with Bank of America. The situation is that the owner's in default, so it's in foreclosure process. The insurance company paid, I've been told, and paid Bank of America, but Bank of America has the funds in an account somewhere and then refuses to pay to rebuild the home. And I believe, this is just projection, but I believe that it's because when the home is done, it's worth less than the money they have in the bank right now to sell it,
Underwater.
which makes sense in this economy. But the neighbors are faced with constant complaints. My office received another call today alone from neighbors, what are we doing about it? And it's just an eyesore, and they feel it's taking,
Bob,
pulling their property values
would we
down
have
even
any
further.
recourse in the neighborhood, even though they own their property, and the fact if they pay, who cuts the grass there, the neighbors?
Well, let me answer part of
Association's
it.
been cutting
Huh?
Let me answer part of that, because when Sandy hit, the state changed the length of time a building permit's good for to years. It's 2 or 3 years now. So I don't, from an enforcement point, I mean, I'll let Bob answer, but it's structurally sound, and a building permit is probably still good and can be renewed if we even went after it. It's just a very difficult situation, but I'll let Bob.
It is a difficult situation. It's not something that's a life hazard situation. It's been boarded up. It's probably been liened with respect to the cost of that. We have our lien's a priority lien over the bank. It's a negative situation in all probability for the bank. I'll be glad to look at it, but sitting here right now, I cannot give you any specific answer as to what authority we would have over and above that which we have already done.
But, looking at what she was saying, they could spend, $20,000 on legal fees and not come to a conclusion to it also.
No guarantees. The thing that Frank Primavera has told me is that if we tried to rebuild the home as it is now, because it's been standing with no roofing and nothing covering the wood, that it probably would have to be knocked down or partially knocked down. So he wouldn't allow somebody to come in and take the structure now with a building permit in hand and just keep going.
They have, the last time I looked into it, and it's been several months ago, they have a valid building permit. And it used to be a year or it used to be 2 years. I think they made it 3 or longer when Sandy hit.
Right.
They changed the whole
Permit extension?
permit. Yeah, it just totally, what was meant to do good, in some cases, made things difficult.
There are other municipalities when some things in Cherry Hill we've been reading about that regardless of whether it was a fire or just an unkept home that's in pre-foreclosure, that there's ordinances that are establishing on the books to make banks or lending institutions keep the properties cleaner or better order. I don't know.
Mike, that was one of the ones I sent you, the Cherry Hill one.
So it's just options, but if we all join together and try to work through this, it would be helpful.
See, I knew originally that there was one time they talked about demolishing that structure and folding in the foundation, removing all of the blocking, whatever was there, because that's a one pour, so all the cement, and then just filling it in and just having a vacant lot. But that seemed like they were going to get to that quickly, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And
Well, the sad part is, it was the charge structure that was demolished down to the foundation. Then they started erecting
Building
a
it
new
up,
home,
correct.
and then the funding stopped, from what I understood, that Bank of America got the money, but they wouldn't release it because he was in default, and the new home, when it was finished, would be worth less than the money they had in hand. So, I can understand, you can't blame him from that business perspective, but at least they should never have let him start building it again.
Mike, are the taxes current on that?
I can't
Can you
answer
check
that
on
sitting here.
that? See if they're up to date on all?
And Mike, I think you just mentioned a really good opportunity that, maybe we could leverage the property managers forum that the police do, and maybe try to take over some of that agenda, bring in, maybe some of the heads from planning and zoning and just kind of brainstorm, because it is an issue across all of, not only the managed properties, but single individual homes as well. Can we use that kind of brain trust, bring in some of our people and talk about what are some things that, you're seeing out there that are being done or could be done, or things that, we could adopt as a governing body from an ordinance standpoint that could help the property managers and just really focus in on that blighted community focus that we've been wanting to attack this year a little bit. So I think it would be a great forum to leverage. I'm glad you brought that up.
Areas where there's not a property management firm, because there are neighborhoods that it just don't know what to do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, this is, I know, I was looking at the, for the sales, the sheriff's sale, I don't know, a month or two ago, and there must have been 300-plus properties that were for sale, and I would assume that there'd be a lot sold. But it turns out there was one sold, because most of these are owned by the banks, and they're refusing to sell them. So it's a bad situation.
Postponing and other things like that, yes. I do have one question, and it's probably for the fire department or the building department. 36 Chancellor Park Place, which was a fire, and also in Chancellor Place, which is now approaching a year, which was a gas grill. It was bought immediately, and those buyers are telling us that they're waiting for approvals, and I'm not sure what kind of approvals they're waiting for, because that was something that I wanted to address. And then 26 Hilltop in Victoria Crossing, they keep telling me they're going to demolish that too, and I think that's pretty unsafe at this point. I stopped by there about a week ago, and the actual former owners, where they still own the home, were in there pulling stuff out, walking in and out of the house.
What was the Chancellor address?
That was 26 Hilltop in Victoria Crossing.
No, Chancellor.
The Chancellor is 36 Chancellor Park Place.
We
and
rode through there, Mike.
That
We
was
can
that
ride
gas
back through
grill
there.
fire, and that's
We'll ride
pretty
back. I know what you
unsightly.
mean.
I thought they were fixing that. I've ridden through there, and there was a dumpster where they were tearing it out.
Dumpster's been there for a year,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I don't know if they've started it now. Most recently, last time I was through, they hadn't, but maybe they're working on it.
Yeah, so the question is just to make sure that we're not the bottleneck, if that's
Right.
what they're
Yeah, if
saying.
it's waiting on approvals, I
I'll
want to make
check,
sure
but
there's
it's
some
probably
truth
not
to
the
that.
case, but I'll check.
I see.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yes, I'm going to thank all five of you for mandating direct deposit.
4 of us.
Yeah,
4 of us.
4.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's approved, so it's mandatory now. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Harry?
The reason I asked my question at the beginning of the meeting, I didn't want to see the results of the audit glossed over, good, bad, or otherwise. In my field, I'm a certified process auditor. Nobody's ever gotten by me 4 years in a row with no findings, ever. That's quite a feather in your cap. And I also wanted to comment on the debt situation. I don't think the public appreciates just how much this board, and especially the previous board, has done to put our township on a firm and sound financial path. You're saving us a fortune in debt service, and I, for one, appreciate it. But in the context of discussing the audit results, I found it appalling that a member of the board would start to talk about the amount of cash that's handled anywhere in this building. It showed a complete disregard for the safety of township employees. While the total amount may be public knowledge, the amount that is cash is certainly not mentioned anywhere. I would suggest, and it's been done before, that the township board consider going back and editing the tape to take those remarks out of the part that would be broadcast. I would ask you to consider that with the solicitor. And if I can make one final comment, I was very surprised, Mrs. Link, that you would talk about the verities of your business from the dais. It seems to me you should have recused yourself as part of the committee and come down here and stood at this microphone to make those points that you did. It seemed highly inappropriate, and I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that before. I mean, when Mayor Silva goes to open up his roadside stand and Amy opens her dance studio, I don't think you should be talking about it from the dais. I don't think you'll ever have a dance studio.
Oh, I definitely won't have a dance studio.
But the point is, I don't think that has any place, and I'm just a little surprised to have seen that. I've never seen that before, Mr. Solicitor. Have you? A rhetorical question. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the public? Mr. Ripley?
Mr. Ripley.
Back again.
It's good to see you.
Just curious as to whether anything's been done about the suggestion of the Sugar Hill intersection.
I can't. Can you speak a little louder, sir?
Has the state been contacted about the Sugar Hill intersection, which was supposed to have been done 18 years ago?
You know, and I think if you listen to
Put
Mr.
that on the list for our DOT
Yeah,
meeting.
we will, but if you listen to Mr. Gouchard, and of course, I were at a forum, several weeks ago, Rodney?
Yes.
We also talked to Congressman Lobiondo at that time, and while he spoke very firm and positive, they were not positive comments he made to us with regards to funding. I don't speak for the state, nor do I make excuses, and I understand exactly how you feel about the Sugar Hill. And with the infrastructure deterioration throughout this state, there may not be enough money to do a lot of the work that's going on, okay? So I think Committeewoman Deputy Mayor Gatto brings up a good point. We will put it on that list and hit the Assemblyman who was here earlier about that being one other area that should be addressed, okay? That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
We don't seem to get the response we want. We've asked for years just for a simple thing of asking them to look at the timing of the light on McKee Avenue on the Black Horse Pike. Yeah, we'll take care of it, but nothing gets done. I mean, we don't seem to have, other than the fact that when we had the Lieutenant Governor here, correct?
But
Even that
Still,
didn't seem
honestly.
to make any headway. So, how many times they have to ask, I guess, until they get tired of hearing us? I mean, we're not giving up on
Somebody
it.
does something.
Hmm?
Till somebody does something.
Exactly right.
Weakest wheel
So-
gets the
Never
most
give up.
grease. The reason I'm pursuing it is because I've more or less made a count of the number of cars that come over Sugar Hill and come down Old Lake Harbor Road and use my driveway
turn around.
as
To
a
turn around.
turnaround. And they're averaging 5 cars an hour, and I'm just sick of it. I mean, it's been going on for, what, 18 years or more.
I wonder what they would do if you parked your car out there and they couldn't use the U-turn.
They should go down to Underhill and turn around. Do you have a
They'd hit
no,
your car is what you're going to say.
Mr. Ripley, do you have a no U-turn sign in your driveway?
Pardon?
Do you have a no U-turn sign in your driveway?
No, I don't.
Might be, might be,
The marina has one.
Yeah, I
There's
saw there.
several other merchants in the area also have,
In some areas, it works,
yeah,
Yeah.
some do and some don't.
yes.
yeah.
There
But
is
to,
no
I
way.
think it's important to answer Mr. Ripley's question. Did we contact them last time you were here? Yes,
Yep.
we did.
times we
2 or 3 times we have. And, you know, I think as Mr. Mayor, you mentioned, we do have a meeting we're setting up with the DOT on several transportation issues, and I think this would definitely be a good one to add to the list, so.
And one of the other problems that I have is, was partially taken care of today unbeknownst to me until I had gone out tonight to dinner. And that was the entryway from McDonald's into John's Flower Shop. The roads, some of the brush, well, you couldn't even see the fence, the steel fence on each side of the road. And finally, one side has been clipped or cleaned up today. And there's also been a pile of, at the marina on a turn going into River Road and Route 50, a pile of cardboard that's been there for 3 weeks, and no one seems to bother picking it up. So
Mike, would you just at least look at the cardboard one if we can do something?
it's the other issue, it's not an issue. I want to take this opportunity to, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a new performing arts center in Mays Landing at the Atlantic County Technical Institute. And it's very similar to Radio City Music Hall. There's a stage there with a 16-foot orchestra pit that drops down into below ground,
Nice, we were
16
there.
feet, and slowly comes up, and it's quite...
It is very nice.
And I've been pushing for years to try and get a performing arts center here. And, pardon me, Stockton is supposed to be part of this, but I received notice today that they are and they aren't. It's,
Well, they have a couple of concerts planned for the next couple of months,
there's
if you've seen it.
3 or 4 concerts
Yes,
that have been
definitely.
planned.
They've got a pretty active schedule, actually.
Pardon?
They have a pretty active schedule, actually.
Yes.
They send out a
do.
bulletin.
There's a
Yeah.
a magazine actually published, and there's one this Sunday night at 6 p.m. Called South Jersey Pops with Linda Gentile.
That's this coming Sunday at 6?
This coming Sunday at 6,
Okay.
yes. So, and I would also like to take the opportunity to thank you, Roger, for your help with Good Guys Bar. and the noise.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elmer.
Thanks, Mr. Ripley.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Second,
All in
third,
favor?
fourth,
Aye.
Aye.
Motion?
Move to adjourn.
Sending me text
Second.
messages.
third, fourth.
Even adjourned.